Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour coming at you on the final week of June. Hot as balls all over the country. Ed Carbajal, as always, here with Matt Hawkins. Returning on the podcast is Bloody Elbows satirist, cartoonist. I don't know what you call yourself, Chris.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Chris Rini.
How are you, folks? Thanks for having me on again. It's good to be here.
Doing well, Chris.
Yeah,
So we had you on about a year ago, give or take.
A little less, yeah.
A little less than a year.
Yeah.
When you had your first book, the Fine Art of Violence, Volume 1, you've just released within the last 6 weeks, give or take again.
Just almost exactly a month ago. Yeah.
Yeah, your second volume of that. When you talked about the first one, everything was going really well. Obviously, that did go well, which led to this one. Any changes, or was it? I haven't seen the second edition, so I can't speak directly on it. But I'm just curious. Is basically the same vibe and everything from the first edition?
The concept is the same, but the execution is far more elaborate. I got a copy right here. As you can see, there's a lot more names on the cover these days. I didn't want it to just be like, look at me, look at what I do. My name is going to be associated with putting it out, but I want it to be a showcase for great people who are a part of this community. So I have 3 artists and 7 writers this time. Myself and Edward Cow, who is kind of renowned for if you're familiar with Sean Al-Shadi's long form pieces that he does, like The Night We Faced Aldo, Bisping, Anderson Silva, Edward Cow's illustrations accompany all of those pieces. So I was really thrilled about the idea of having him be part of it. And another guy named Adam Nelson, who on Instagram and Twitter goes by Gorilla the Bear. He does very comic book style work, but just super fun and dynamic and just like killer work. So Adam and I have kind of chatted back and forth over the years, and I didn't really know Ed, but he actually bought volume 1, and he was like, "Hey man, I'd love to be part of this one day." And I was like, "Wow, that's amazing." I didn't know he had that kind of respect. So I reached out to him, and they both just did amazing work. They're great illustrators. And then I have essays by Sean Al-Shadi, Schwan Humes, Julie Kedzie, Chuck Mindenhall, Fernanda Prates, Eugene S. Robinson, and the returning Josh Rosenblatt. Yeah, there you go. Look at that.
We just brought it up on the screen here for folks that don't watch the video version of the podcast, but just so you can see this is from Chris's website where you can buy the book. I mean, obviously it's out of stock, sold out right away.
But the digital version is still available.
Oh, nice, cool. Yeah. Good to know. One of the things, I mean, obviously, my apologies first of all for reaching out to you so late after the release. But you were a busy man when this thing came out, and
I think you're like my 9th podcast.
yeah, like so because the first time it was kind of like out of the blue, and this time it's like people wanted more. Like you said, you collaborated, you got writers. So I mean, did it just come out of the fire of the first one? Like you said, you just told us the story with Ed.
I have always wanted this to be an annual thing. The goal has been like the real terror was when you do the first one and you're like, is this going to resonate with people? And the response was strong. It sold out. I did a small print run, and then a bunch of people were like, I want it. Do it again, print another one, and I was like, I don't know. I was like taking that company Supreme. They have like an artificial scarcity to their work, and I was like, I'm going to adopt that kind of take, you can't be a small fry, which is what I am in this business, and just be like, yeah, I'll print on demand. I'll get it to you. It's like, you have to know who you are. And like, I'm a boutique, I'm not, whatever, so you gotta like build a little bit of anticipation and excitement. And I did the first book, and it's a good book. It looks beautiful. The writing is fantastic. Josh Rosenblatt did 10 essays. The guy is like a lifesaver. And because I thought I was going to write it myself. And he's like, and I was like, hey, you want to edit it for me? And then he's like, you want me to write this thing for you? I was like, yeah, please. I'll tell you all. So I would give him like an art historical context behind the ideas of why I chose a certain pose or did it in a certain style. And then he would have to like go to Wikipedia and learn about art history before he could write it. And then when the book was done, I sent copies of it to all the people featured in the volume 2. And I was like, this is what I do. This is what the next one's going to be. Would you like to be a part of this? And they all said yes. And I was just so thrilled. I was so I feel like a real member of the MMA media, like I crossed a certain threshold. It's one thing when you publish your work and you do your thing. It's another thing when people like, yeah, I'll work with you,
Yeah, or especially if you have people that want to work with you, like you told the story with Ed. I mean, it just looks like there's so many other. I mean, I'm used to your artwork. I've been seeing it on my social feed for years, and the stuff you do over at Bloody Elbow. But now we're getting to see some of these other people that you collaborated with. This piece, I feel like I've seen somewhere before. This.
Oh yeah. Adam promotes his work very well. He's got a pretty strong Instagram following. Probably 5 figures at least. I even saw, like he one of his, I think 2 of his images got licensed by Reebok.
Oh wow!
A couple of years ago, I think they did a Khabib shirt and a Nate Diaz shirt. They did like a limited run of his stuff. Yeah, I remember he and I were chatting about how to be an artist and sign a contract and things like that. I gave him the best advice I could. Yeah, and then Edward, man, it was just such a joy chatting with him and getting to know him because we're just cut from the same cloth.
So I have a question about the essays on this. I mean, with all you got Julie Kedzie on here and Chuck Mindenhall. I mean, like you said, like how did you I mean, working with guys like, especially Chuck, I know he likes to write really long pieces. So did he come? I mean, you guys know each other from obviously we're kind of in the same area. Yeah. So did he come to you first, or like what? No,
I cold called everyone.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. But what was the request? Like, are they just writing about the artwork or what they see in the space? Like what is the gist of their essays?
It was a little different for everybody, and for everyone, honestly, I had fully formed ideas for some people and far less fully formed ideas for other people. I was just more a fan of their work. Chuck actually really helped me with Sean Al-Shadi because he's like, oh, he's a total Dustin Poirier mark. I was like, oh, all right, cool. So I'll pitch him Dustin Poirier. And then I spoke with Edward Cow because they had worked with Sean so much. I was like, oh, I want you guys to be together again. I want you guys to, I want to see your artwork with Sean's words. So that was kind of cool. And I think that sending Sean the artwork really helped him get over the hump. With Chuck, I think I had like 1 or 2 ideas, and I was like, I want to do this thing, the tragedy of Jose Aldo. Like I have the piece that I did of him. Let me see if I could put it on the thing on the screen while I chat with you guys about this. There's a moment where he is just like on his knees, just like,
oh yeah,
just like sitting in a puddle of his own blood.
Yeah.
And he's really, you can imagine him contemplating, that was it. That was probably my last title shot. That was probably the last chance I had to get that title. And thinking about what it is to be like one of the greats and to kind of like, just you're like, you're just not able to cross that threshold again. And Chuck loved that idea. He's like, he loves tragedy. He's like, yeah, he's an Aldo guy, and he's like, he likes these really, I don't know, the tragedy of humanity, I guess. And so that resonated with him. Fernanda Prates, she wrote an essay about Esther Lin. That was, Esther Lin retired from the journalism side of MMA photography. And I had listened to Fernanda interview her, and I thought it was just a fantastic interview, by 2 really, titans of the media space. And I was like, I just went straight to her. I was like, I love what you did with her. I want to honor her would you write the essay? And she
Oh,
was like,
nice.
hell yeah. That was easy.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Julie Kedzie was actually, I had a really fully formed idea for her. Where basically, there's this thing that you may hear from time to time, fighters say that like journalists can't talk about fighters, like you don't get in there, you don't have the right to give your opinion on this. And I was like, you know what, Julie, you fought, you can write, you have the right to talk about this. And I was like, you want to talk about Joanna versus Wiley Zhang, best fight of the year, unquestionably, just an amazing thing that happened. And you want to, and probably I was a little vague, my enthusiasm was there, and we had to have a couple chats on the phone, just kind of to keep the momentum going, but it was great. I mean, her essay is absolutely fantastic. I got the book reviewed in one non-MMA media space. It's this guy in Europe who does like a cultural newsletter. The praise that he had for her writing was like, it just like the cherry on top of my this whole thing.
Well, I applaud you for everything, including the humbleness and everything, and being involved and calling yourself a small fry. I mean, you've now published 2 books that are being picked up pretty widely in the MMA world, and now, like as you mentioned, outside of it. You mentioned when you talked about the first book how there was the nerves and the getting over the just got to do it, and can't worry about criticism and all that stuff.
Sure.
And then now the second volume, all these people you brought in, kind of not under your wing, but you brought into the book. It sounds like everything went really smooth. Were there any worries or concerns or any roadblocks getting this one out, or did this one come out easier than the first one for you?
No, this one was way harder. It was way harder. The artists were fantastic. The artists were just like bang, 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 bang. And a couple of the writers were like, yep, tell me when you want it, how long it has to be, bang, bang, bang. And some people were just like, some people's computers died. Some people had like personal issues.
Been there.
And you're just like, oh my God, I need this. I love you, but I need this.
Yeah.
Some people's work needed no editing. Some people's work needed like a meat cleaver.
Yeah.
But the end result is everything is fantastic. The end result is great. And that's all I judge people on. Probably one of the most brutal was, most of my work is it's real life work. It's not digital. So, I have to get a photographer to come here and take the pictures of everything. It's the only way you're going to get like consistent good work that my graphic designer will accept. And he's like, hey buddy, this stuff ain't right. The resolution's not good. And I was like, oh, you're kidding me. And the photographer is somebody I've known for years. We've worked together for years. So I have no problem calling her up. I'm like, hey, you got to come out. This guy's telling me this is not right. And she, she went through her files. She's like, I don't know what happened. They saved too small. I'll come out and do it. But what do you do when somebody's like, all right, hey, your production schedule just got knocked back by 2 weeks. And not only that, like you can't do anything. You can't give your graphic designer anything. They have nothing to work with. You're like, I'm dead. And also working with, forgive me.
That's all right.
Working with 9 people or 12, if you count like the photographer, the graphic designer, the printer, all those people. Everybody speaks a different way. Everybody communicates a different way. Everybody's got a different work style. I put my foot in my mouth a bunch of times. I stuttered and stumbled a bunch of times because you're like, I don't know how to talk to you. I don't know you. I know you from Twitter.
Yeah, no, I hear that, man. I mean, especially, and then you're talking about too, you have writers and then you have visual artists like yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, as someone that's, I used to be more artsy when I was a teenager or whatever. And now I kind of fell into writing, and I don't even consider myself that great a writer to begin with. But I do know that when you're talking with as far as creators go and content creators, everyone's got their own language and tempos and the ways they work. So, I mean, when you bring the writers and the artists together like that, there's going to be some shuffling of the cards that and they don't come back in the deck all the way you want them to. Really quick, because I forgot to mention at the beginning of the podcast, this is brought to you by AllAccessMMA.com. Make sure you check out All Access MMA for your MMA news. Speaking of MMA news, listen, we've talked about inspiration, and we just featured some of your. We keep bringing up some of your artwork from the last time you were on screen here. But I mean, current events have you not short of ammunition for new artwork. So
thank God. I saw that. I was like, whew. I was like a little sad that I wasn't on the schedule for the next day, for Tuesday. I was like, I gotta wait till Wednesday, but I know what I'm doing. Oh man, I feel so bad for Francis Ngannou. What a trash fire. This whole run has been for him. I'm sorry, ever since losing the Stipe fight, nothing's been easy for that guy. I feel for him. I feel like the promotion was just like, fuck him, fuck him. They gave him the old Matt Serra, and then, he comes back, he does his thing. He won 3 fights in a row, I think. Yeah. And then he sit on the sidelines while other people hash out their career, and then, have like the performance of a lifetime against Stipe. I still think that's one of the best performances I've ever seen in terms of personal growth and improvement. Yeah. One of the tiredest things in MMA is the phrase 6 months of sprawl training. And this dude did it. Yeah. This dude did what people for a decade have been like claiming is possible. And what do we get now? Just a fucking trash fire. Wait, what I'm want to call the fight between Lewis and Gane it's the heavyweight fight, all WAIT. Like just hold on, guys.
It sure is
the heavyweight on a second, folks. We gotta.
Yeah, it sure is, man. I mean, listen, I've seen you do work. I mean, when we were at the Garden for the Bellator thing. I remember watching you sit on the same. I think we were in the same row. You were in press row with me, and you had all your stuff laid out. And watching you churn out artwork, I could only imagine with the news when this news like this pops off, and you have to break out your artwork because of everything, the frustration that you feel and everything that you see. I mean, I did see the one thing you did with the Dana White, like with the figure, and it was kind of like a meme where he was like, something about ESPN schedule or something like that.
It's I'm learning that how old I am because things that I'm like, oh, this is funny and resonant, and people are like, I don't know if people are old enough to get this meme. I'm like, oh my God, no. So it's the the Drew Carey show, Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah.
His catchphrase was, welcome to the show where the points don't matter and everything is made up. And I was like, oh, great. Welcome to the UFC where the titles are made up and the only thing that matters is the ESPN schedule. Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately the joke still lands, but like the pose and the meme and the layout of it, I was like, oh God, I guess I still live in 2008, So I was joking with Anton Tabueno, one of my editors at Bloody Elbow. I was like, I'm gonna have to start like learning some new memes, like Lil Nas X. He's hip, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the UFC is doing. It makes no sense. Ngannou became must-see TV. As somebody who goes to a ton of events, I saw him. I was there when flew to Phoenix to watch him knock out Kane.
Oh, really?
The first crowd. I would have been at the first event that in the United States that he was headlining if he was there. So I don't know. I and like as you said, he improved and did what his critics held against him for those first couple of years. And when he beat Stipe, my opinion and some of the opinion around me was, well, UFC's finally got their Mike Tyson. We had Tank Abbott for a small period long time ago. Right. But now you've got your legitimate Mike Tyson. And now it just makes me wonder if Dana White had been Tyson's manager in the 80s, 90s, we would have saw Tyson fight 3 fights,
exactly.
And then you combine that with what he did with Sean O'Malley's situation, where he's obviously Dana White's boy or his team player, and he gets to basically pick his opponent and very well might get a title shot off of beating a new signed guy. I mean, it wouldn't surprise. I mean, I'm just guessing at that.
Oh my God.
Certainly that wouldn't shock anybody. He'll at least get a number 1 contender fight. So, I mean, I don't know, but It's just wild, but I was getting a crack up out of it, and I didn't catch the Drew Carey thing, although I did used to watch that TV show over and over again. But
I thought about putting those glasses on Dana. I was like, ooh, maybe that'll be that. But I don't know if you guys saw that. That's a little ghost behind him. That's
I did see that. Yeah,
that's Hunter Campbell.
Oh, let me bring it back up so folks that watch the video version. Right there.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. If you look up Hunter Campbell's, that's based on his LinkedIn photo.
Oh wow!
And now
how long? I mean, because you put this out relatively soon with all that news, so
like, this came out 9 a.m. today.
Oh, but for as far as I know, like you had to submit it to them for publishing or whatever. But like when you pen to paper to start a piece like this, when you get the inspiration from the news, like what's the turnover for you?
My goal is 2 hours.
Okay.
I wanna make something in 2 hours. I get and that's just like an arbitrary number I came up with myself when I got this job. You know, I was like, and it's weird because when I started, I was just doing like Post-it notes, you know, with pencil, and now I have like, you know, a digital setup to do all this stuff. So it is a little weird. You can with digital, you know, you can just work something to death. And I always have to remember, like, man, that ain't my thing. That's not what I'm good at, and that's not what I'm known for. That's not even where I get my best traction. It's like it's a fucking joke, you know. It's got to land, and it's got to be silly, and it's got to be a little bit true and a little bit absurd. That's always been my guiding light, you know. And there's a lot of political cartoonists who I really admire their work, but I've decided that, like, I'm an artist. I publish a book. I put my artwork in there. When I make my satirical cartoons, I'm not like, it's about sending a message. It's not about like making a great work of art.
I mean, I imagine Ngannou might have been a part of it. I asked you in the past what fight you were looking forward to, and at that time it was Adesanya and Costa. Is there a fight? Is there a fight in the future now that you're looking forward to doing a drawing of for maybe your next book, or at least
I'm hyped for the rematch between Jan and Sterling. I feel like, you know, Jan was going to take that, you know, in the later rounds, and I wonder. I'm actually genuinely thrilled to see how Sterling and his team process that reality check that they got. He got like a second chance at life. Yeah. I don't know that he can do anything about it, because Jan's takedowns and wrestling and trips were just stunning. That was just absolute beauty, you know. I've been drawing that. Oh, forgive me, that's a motorcycle on the other side of this window. But I'm stunned by Jan's you know, trips and throws and whatnot like that. That was just killer. Just killer.
Especially in that particular fight between them two. I mean, you saw that was I mean, even Sterling had no answers for any of those quick trips and you know, removing his steps where he wanted to plant his feet and stuff like that. I mean, that's just lifelong mastery of you know, judo or whatever it is that he trained in, where he was able to mess up his balance like that. But you know, it's fun. When you're talking about producing content, and like when I asked you about the time limit and stuff like that, it's funny that you're talking about you know, like how you can be really your own worst critic about quality, but sometimes as I sit here in the dark looking like I'm in the Unfriended horror film because I can't be in my regular room, but I'm the same way. Like when it comes to video and audio content, like I want some things to be right. I know this is for an audio podcast, and that'll be clear. I'm not too happy with the way I look right now, but that'll bother me for the rest of the week.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. I'm actually my big goal for volume 3, which I'm working on, is to live stream a lot of it. The making of. Come July, I booked a consultant to help me learn how to set up a Twitch channel, and you know, basically, I'm just trying to grow this. You know, the Fine Art of Violence publication. You know,
I mean, not for nothing, you could save yourself a bunch of money. Setting up the channel is super easy. They actually have the steps right on there.
Oh, I have the channel. It's more about pairing my desktop with the iPad and making my audio right. I mean,
got you.
Yeah. It's all and actually
that's big on Twitch too.
Yeah. And I have the person that actually, it was a client who commissioned some MMA artwork, and just in our interview, where I like decide if I want to do work with this person or not, the guy was super cool, and I was like, what do you do? He's like, I teach calculus or something way over my head, I can't even remember. And he's like, and he teaches people how to create online learning platforms. I was like, oh, I want to set up a Twitch thing. He's like, I don't know anything about Twitch, but I know plenty about cameras and video and streaming. I was like,
oh yeah.
I was like, will you help me then, sir? And he's like, yeah, no problem. So that's the reason it's one thing, making these books.
Yeah.
I have learned to accept what I'm not good at. And like, I'm sure I could learn to do certain things on my own. I'm sure that is a waste of my freaking time, because I don't have a lot of time, I have a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I'm the primary parent. I work for Bloody Elbow, and then I publish a book on my own once a year. Man, I am all about streamlining my life. And like, I'd rather learn the first time the right way from someone, and then teach my, like just work on developing some sort of brain and muscle memory for like, all right, every day I set up my camera, I set up my mic, I set up my OBS, I set up this stuff, and I am like ready to go, because I have limited time. I'm not like the kind of streamer who can be like, well, I'm on 8 hours a day. It's like, motherfucker, I'm buying groceries and cooking dinner and picking the kids up from camp, and doing other things that like you got to do to like be a person. And I was like, all right, I'll just learn the right way to do it, and then I will do it forever.
Yeah, I mean, not for nothing. I'm old, and I'm a busy guy too. I don't have kids and stuff, but I mean, Matt knows. I write for several outlets. I also have a day job, and I train and teach jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of time either. I mean, that's why. I mean, shameless plug here. That's why I use StreamYard, which is what we're using for this.
Yeah, totally.
Affiliate link at the bottom of the YouTube channel for anyone that wants to help a brother out. But
let me tell you, I'm a white belt, and I know how hard you have to work for dummies like me. We're eating up all your time asking you to do the same thing every week. Like, how do you do that bread cutter?
But yeah, man, I mean, I hear you, but that's like I always search for, because I tried doing the OBS thing and I tried self-teaching and stuff like that. I mean, I'm also cheap. I don't want to pay someone. You know what I mean? So if I don't have the time to watch the YouTube videos and stuff to teach me how to do that stuff, then I always look for the next way to streamline thing. But I mean, that just goes with, it's funny because we had Aoxis on here, Anthony Tovan Anthony, that does the rap predictions and stuff, and he's another creator, and he and I go back and forth a lot about how do we make this easier so we can get to still do everything else we have to do on top of create and stay on top of the game of where we want to create content for, especially in this space of combat sports. But
yeah, it's wild how you gotta, I don't know, you can't let yourself get old, and by old I mean dated. You got to grow with the times, you got to adapt, and I'm definitely somebody who is a slow adopter. I'm a late adopter of technology and stuff. Like, dude, I got an iPad Pro, Apple Pencil. I'm doing digital artwork. 42 years old. I am new to this. The whole first book, pen and paper. Like, I'm like, I'll take my time, but I'll grow. That's the way. I'll grow slowly.
Your book's named the Art of Violence, and like us being the combat hour,
the fine art of violence.
The fine art, but the violence was what, or you didn't lock yourself into MMA. And as somebody who Ed likes to call a Just Bleed fan, the idea of drawing some of the wackiness I've witnessed in person at BKFC events would be something. I mean, just the blood alone and all that chaos seems like it would be something for your type of art. Do you watch that at all? Have you ever done anything for like Bellator? I know obviously that's MMA, but everything I've seen pretty much is UFC based. Have you thought about maybe doing a chapter or something just on some other kind of, the circus act that is some of these other events?
Yes, I've wanted to address that, and I will in volume 3. I'll give you guys a little heads up. One of the special contributors for volume 3 is the Grabaka Hitman.
Oh man!
Oh, nice.
Yep. I am so thrilled, like, to work with him. And I'll tell you already, like, the first book, I had like did I have a little bit of Bellator? I can't even remember. And then the second book, forget it. It was a pandemic. You got nothing but UFC.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Book 3, I already got a bunch. I got some nice Bellator work. I have a bunch of One. I have some Ryzen. Actually, one of the best fights of the year, Ai Hamasaki. Oh God, I'm gonna like look it up right now because I can't remember exactly her name. I got it for you right here. Ready? It is. I would recommend anybody. Hamasaki versus Asakura. Holy crap! Was that the 105-pound title? Mm-hmm. That was killer. And then Invicta had their Phoenix tournament. I'm like, forget it. I got a whole bunch of stuff. But Kaposa, the Grabaka Hitman. I was like, I want you to curate a chapter of my book just for the craziness that people don't see. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna figure out exactly what that means, but yes, I am 100% like, this is about like, I don't want to go too much circus sideshow because this book is very much, I want to pay tribute to what happens in the cage. Mm-hmm. I want to pay tribute to, and that's why in my books, there's no cage, there's no ref, there's no audience, and there's no sponsors. I in fact, I usually don't even like put the people's tattoos in there. It's about it's very much a study of the human body and the art of MMA, the things that are so unique to that sport that don't happen anywhere else. So I do want to keep it very, even though the word is violence, it is very much like, how can we treat these martial artists, like give them their due for their performances. Mm-hmm. And, I feel like the industry and the promotions exploit them so much.
Yeah.
I feel like watching UFC these days is like watching NASCAR. You have to squint to see the fighters. You know?
And it's weird that you say that because it's like when you talk about, if you look, back in the day, we're all going to date ourselves now. When you talked about like an underground rapper selling out, but then, then that's kind of what they're working to do because they want to be, they want to make money like these guys that do in the big leagues. And we're seeing that happen for the promotion, but we're not seeing it really happen for the fighters.
Right. Exactly.
And then the sad part is like the promotional machine seems to, they're almost getting it to, because there was a time, and Metal, you can chime in any time you want on this, but there was a time when MMA was niche, and the UFC was still the front runner, but not everyone tuned into it. I was in a bar, since we're recording on a Wednesday. I went Taco Tuesday. I went late last night after I worked out, and I saw that there was this was a bar that doesn't normally put it on. All the TVs had a replay on of an old UFC event. So now we're at a point where it's like it's not our thing anymore. It's the
world.
Now, it's the world's thing, and you have 23-year-old know nothings that are now covering and featuring and chiming in on the sport that get a full platform for it.
Dude, I got interviewed by Nick Baldwin. I'm literally old enough to be his dad.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The truth is, like, a person like me can only make a book like this because MMA is not a niche sport anymore. It's like, I always think of it as like a tree, and the roots of it are like the martial arts, and the trunk is like the fighters themselves. And, once you get like big enough that you have these nice big branches, that's me up there, like I need a lot of support. I need a lot of something else, for somebody to be like, I'm going to make artistic drawings of, maybe a painting of or two of like these amazing things. And like, I wouldn't be doing this if it was still a niche sport. It just wouldn't even make sense.
No, it wouldn't make sense, but you would have had a lot of content that when it was that niche sport, there was so much more character. And you talk about NASCAR. So you while you don't have the advertisements, you had guys, you're not putting their names and stuff. So you're drawing to that, but you still had the Iceman shorts. You still had the flames on Tito. You still had,
they had way more character.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just a ton of that. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't, it's got to grow. So there's no way around that. I've mentioned that my thing with I've been to 2 BKFC events in the last year. And while that's not the glory, I mean, it's a totally different ball game. I still get that feeling of what it was. Right now, it's kind of like my time machine back to the Indian reservation.
I like that.
The feeling. Now, while maybe in the Nagano fight's different, a lot of MMA for me, I feel like I kind of know how the night's going to end up. Whereas there wasn't always the feeling in the early days. That was the draw when you would show up at an Indian reservation and there would be a cage on the second base of a baseball field and you didn't know what was going to happen. You watched, the old UFC days. I mean, the guys who were around Tank Abbott in those early days, they'll comment like, we thought he was going to kill somebody, that kind of thing. So, whereas now, obviously, it's been sanctioned. You actually have doctors. You have trusted doctors. The only thing now that really sucks is the judges. So maybe we'll avoid that. But, and I'm not exactly sure where this is going. It just feels like it had to come to this point. But there's always that nice feeling of the nostalgia and the what it used to be like that built the base for what we have today.
I actually really like the idea, thinking of BKFC as like the way for the martial arts space to reclaim the flavor of early MMA. I think that's a great way, a lens to look through and understand it. I'm gonna marinate on that for a while.
Because I've told people that bash BKFC, like, no offense, but you sound to me like the person in 1997 telling me the UFC was garbage. I mean, it all has to go through phases, and yes, it's violent and it's not for everybody, and there's blood and this, but at the same token, I was sitting ringside when Chris Liebman got his leg snapped. I also was not very far away from Hill's arm dislocation a couple weeks ago. So. And we've talked to BKFC heavyweight champion Joey Beltran. We've had Sean Wheelock and Chris Light on this show, and they'll all jump in and basically admit that while it looks violent as hell, it's actually safer. Joey Beltran mentioned that he used to be concussed for weeks after an MMA fight, and he has yet to miss a Monday morning kids class where he teaches MMA the fall 2 days after his BKFC fights.
No kidding.
So while it doesn't look that way, it's a deception. And I try to remind people, like, this is what I used to hear in 1996, 95. We heard this from other people. So while it's not your cup of tea, bashing it like that and trying to bring it down is not necessarily good for any of these combat sports. Yeah. And as long as it's up and up, they're paying their guys. We don't have illegal this and that going on that we know of.
Honestly, that was the one thing that made me uncomfortable about the bare knuckle when it started to bubble up. It was like when I think the first couple events that you hear like, oh, somebody didn't get paid, and be like, oh man, like that is the one thing that, like, that's the worst thing about the UFC is that they don't pay them enough. Listen, now you don't even follow through. You're basically entrenching the UFC as a dominant force if you can't follow through. It needs competition. It desperately, like, if ever there was a promotion that needed somebody else to keep them honest, it's the UFC, and they need this competition.
Especially since they've gone public or Endeavor went public, but everyone keeps saying it's just the UFC. I mean, that's been I guess that's their only moneymaker right now or whatever. But I mean, everybody knows about it. It's familiar, household brand, if you will. But the other thing too is because of their growth, the things that they used to do are going to get brushed away so easily, like they were 5-10 years ago. Even today, before we did this, I mean, as I was working my day job, I saw 2 articles, one from Paige Van Zandt, based on an interview with Paige Van Zandt, one based on an interview with Chris Cyborg, how they both say leaving the UFC was the best thing they ever did, and how they're better off financially.
Yeah.
So, and then all that tied in with the Ngannou stuff and going on in the news, it could be like there's people that are against competition, but I've always funny. I mean, I have Bill Goldberg's book over here in my little library, and he talks about the WCW WWE thing, Monday Night Wars.
Yeah,
and he even said, that was the best thing for the wrestling as a business as a whole.
Yeah,
because there was more than one option out there, and I don't know. I just feel like that's where we are with MMA.
Yeah, I agree. It's very rare that like some sort of creative force has like no impediments, and somehow that makes them better. It's almost as though we need to overcome something to be our best selves. Like it like having the easiest path isn't some magic recipe for success. It's actually through challenges that we become better.
You need the big media's got to pick up on fights like McKee Pitbull. It's simple as that.
Right.
That fight's as good as any UFC fight we'll see in the next 5 years.
Probably the best fight this quarter that we're looking forward to.
Talent on talent, what it means for Bellator. It's going to be at the LA Forum. It's in a big media market. There's no reason that in a real world where you don't have the monopoly and you don't have the blacklisting or the shadow banning almost of certain organizations, that fight shouldn't be front and center, Sports Center.
It comes down to the distinction that the UFC is in the business of promoting the UFC, not the fighters, so if the best fighters are fighting under the Bellator banner, then Bellator will never be the UFC. Therefore the fighters can never be on the same level because they're fighting, they're sucking up all the air. And that's always been my take on the crazy number of events they do as well.
For both of you guys, I mean, we only got a few minutes left here for the podcast, but do you think do we ever see the Ali Act expand into MMA? I mean, are we gonna get to see all these belts up for grabs by everybody in our lifetime, or are we gonna be in the old folks' home, not knowing what's going on by the time it happens?
A little bit of A, a little bit of B. I feel like MMA could go one of two ways. It could go the way of boxing, in which it's, every man for himself forever, which is totally possible. Or it could be a little bit like baseball, where baseball players in the early 20th century up into the 50s and 60s had very little power over their own careers, regardless of how good they were. There was I used to be a baseball kid, so there's a guy named Ralph Kiner who is, a great slugger, and I remember he hit like 50 home runs for the Pirates, and God, I don't know, sometime in the 50s, I think, or 60s. And, when his contract was up, they offered him a new contract at a pay cut. He was like, but I hit 50 home runs. And he's like, we came in last place though. So we'll come in last place with you, come in last place without you, take the pay cut. And he had no power. And in the 70s, the players finally started to lobby for free agency. And this one guy whose name escapes me at the moment went to court. And, the free agency period, gave us baseball as we know it today. I try to tell myself that like maybe MMA is like baseball in the 30s or the 40s, and it's just going to take a certain amount of time before these changes happen. I kind of feel like something can happen because this is not the early 20th century in which everyone is siloed incommunicado with only like a handful of newspapers and radio programs. I think there's just too much information. There's too much knowledge. There's people like John Nash, just like dissecting court documents. There's too much knowledge for nothing to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think unfortunately it probably goes more the boxing way, just because I feel like the baseball analogy would be great, but at least there you had some owners who were decent people. Not every team owner was a terrible person, so at least you could kind of break the ice. Whether it was segregation or proper pay or anything like that. Whereas I know you're obviously not a Dana White fan. I'm more neutral with him. I understand the business. I mean, as a former business owner, I can kind of see a little bit of his side of the story on certain things. I feel like, but I don't defend him on the fighter pay and how he treats that side at all. I think that is complete rubbish. I think that for me, I think the only way MMA or the UFC really is what we're talking about gets over the hump is an owner who's a good guy, you know, a legitimate guy who has enough money that he can feel comfortable in his own skin and not be afraid to share the wealth. And I think that that's got to be more the realistic thing, and maybe that's never realistic. You know, I don't know, but I feel like if we did, I mean, we don't hear people complain about Scott Coker's pay. At least the fighters don't publicly do it. The difference between the UFC and Feldman with BKFC and all these guys are, now Feldman did have an issue with Tyler Goodjohn. There was a payment issue that got cleared, and Goodjohn actually fought this last week. It got cleared apparently as soon as it became public light. The other BKFC event that you're speaking of, I think it was called the World BKFC Championship or something. They definitely screwed over all their fighters, but that one's went by the wayside. I just feel like that you need an owner, a Scott Coker per se, who's willing to kind of open up the books and be honest with it and go, even though we're not the NFL, we're not, because Dana White can talk about the UFC being the biggest sport in the world. Listen, we're not stupid, right? We know we're like 5th, 6th, 7th place if we're really gonna start lining this stuff up. But you need to have, he's got to be willing to open up the books, be willing to hey, we're not a league per se. We don't have different teams. We don't have different owners, but we're still going to share 40% of the revenue. That's we're going to be honest about it and because I think the UFC for most reports is like 9 to like 13% of maybe revenue going to the fighters, where in like the NBA and the NFL, I believe it's 50-50 split.
Yeah, I know the New York Post had the numbers out at the end of last year, beginning of this year. I forget when that article that came out that had broke down their numbers, but it's not a lot, and it's not.
It was in the teens. I'm pretty sure it was in the teens.
It's pretty brutal. I think it gets worse when you realize that certain things that the fighters are taxed on are things that they don't actually receive as tangible benefits. Did you know that like the money that like you said they pay USADA, you know, like that's a fighter benefit, and that's taxable income, even though they don't receive, like, so that you are paying taxes as a fighter on that guy who knocks on your door and asks you to pee in a cup. You know, that's your benefit. So, you know, I think the more this stuff becomes public, it's a little easier to feel like, hey, you know, I like this sport. I don't want to feel shitty for watching it.
And that's at the end of the day, that's really where if any change is going to come and the fans really want to do, because it happens all the time. Everybody's on Twitter and they're, you know, with their pitchforks and saying, you know, pointing their fingers at Dana White and the UFC and all these other people that do these bad things. But then, like, July 10th, UFC 264 will be here, and everybody's still gonna fucking watch it. So you know what I mean? So like then everybody's a kind of a hypocrite at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, so like the real way that you can make your voice heard, if you really don't like something, then just stop doing it. Like remember when Netflix first raised their prices and everybody started canceling their subscription, and Reed Hastings had to not only send out an apology but backtrack on raising that price. You know, that because people started doing something about it. That works everywhere. It doesn't just have to be Netflix.
Well, a lot of people are doing stuff about it, but we just really can't talk too much about that.
I have one suggestion about like the idea of having a good guy run the company. If you can get your hands on a copy of the New Yorker, they did a profile on Ari Emanuel. And that's really a worthwhile read.
I think I did read that. That was like in 2016, 2017.
No. This is like a month ago.
Oh, okay.
A month ago. Yeah. Ari Emanuel profile on New Yorker.
I'm just putting it
actually, when it came out, I emailed Kid Nate. I was like, I want to do an extra. I want to do an extra cartoon this week just about this. And he's like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I got to look for that myself then if it's new. You said a New Yorker, right? New Yorker.
Yeah.
One thing I have to say though about the Matt's good guy comment, really, really I don't want to say it's not going to happen, but it's super rare in giant corporations for the good guy to be running it. You have to read. I mean, there's 2 books. I forget the doctor's name that write it. Hare is his last name. Robert Hare. Dr. Robert Hare wrote a book called Snakes in Suits that talks about how many corporate tycoons are just psychopaths.
Oh yeah,
And if you want the abridged, shorter version to read, John Ronson or Ron Johnson, I forget I always mess up that author's name, but he's got a book called The Psychopath Test. It's funny because one reason I'm bringing them up is because some Twitter conversation I got in, somebody was saying something similar to what Matt said about the good guy, and it's just like at this level in business. I mean, not everyone
ain't gonna make it that far.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of that is built in while building the product. Like if Dana White's attitude was like this at UFC 34, like okay, he just bought the company 7-8 months ago, 9 months ago, a year and a half ago. Like he's going through the growing pains of trying to establish the company. Right now, anybody really should be able to step into that role. Anybody with any kind of business sense and do the job. To me, it can be like it doesn't even, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the owners. I guess it does because it's their money. Yeah. But to me, like I'm a former fighter, somebody who's successful in life should be able to step in at least into the Dana White role. At least somebody who can go in there and talk to the upper people and go, no, this is wrong. Like I don't feel like Dana White's going into Ari Emanuel and going, hey, we owe Ngannou 250,000 more. Like we owe him 2.5 million. Like that's what you need. It doesn't necessarily have to be the nicest guy on the planet. It just has to be somebody who can look at the books and go, dude, this guy is about ready to sell us 2 million pay-per-view. We want him to fight every 4 months. Why in the world are we going to piss him off and screw our brand? Sure, we can have Sean O'Malley fight, the guy who runs the pet store down the street next week. But at the same, and I don't mean to mock the dude he's fighting. I hope he knocks Sean O'Malley on his ass. But so it doesn't have to be a shrewd businessman who's the nicest guy, because running a business isn't a nice thing for a lot of people. It's not. It's hard work. But when you've established yourself to a what do they call themselves, a $6 billion company right now?
Yeah, something like that.
Pump the brakes a little bit and show that why not come out and go, holy crap, look what I've made. Let's spread a little of it out now. I mean, these guys, and while I don't know. I in my world, everything's always on a teetering balance. Somebody dying in the cage, the UFC could, there's always that thing. So I don't know. I think you get what I'm trying to say, though.
I do. There's an interesting part of that Ari Emanuel piece is his desire to leave a legacy, and it makes you think like, I don't know. Do you want to what kind of legacy you're going to have if you leave a bunch of broken, poor people behind? Like someone's not going to forget. Someone's not, that's it. It's like you can do well for yourself, but if you want other people to think highly of you, you have to let them praise you. That's like my grievance with like Dana White. Like everyone gets to take a shot at him because he's already busy praising himself. You know what I mean? Like with that paycheck, like whatever, man, you don't get the round of applause because you've already given it to yourself, with your machine gun full of cocaine and heroin, your 35,000 katana sword, your bulldozing mansions to make another mansion, like you pat yourself on the back, then there will be fewer people available to do it for you, and if you can just live your life and do your thing, people will come around. But
what kind of legacy is Ari? I got to read this because what kind of legacy does he want to leave? Like whether it's a good or a bad legacy, like if he's not confident in himself enough at this point to believe that he's already got a legacy, what do you want to be, the king of the planet?
Well, that's the thing, like
I don't know a ton about the guy, but he's in the business world. He's extremely successful. Like he's
kind of acknowledges that simply making a lot of money doesn't quite do it. Well, in terms of legacies, there's plenty of people who've made a lot of money. That's why it's a good article. I would recommend it just because there's room for nuance. And he's like, I don't know, man. Maybe you're in the wrong business for legacies. You know, maybe you want power, maybe you want money, maybe you want a thing. But I don't know.
I'm definitely gonna look into it. They'll make for some nice reading for a while. You know, things are somewhat. I mean, just because there's no UFC doesn't mean there's not events going on. There's CFFC, there's an LFA. Like, there's going to be stuff going on. So for folks that crying about no UFC, like, you know, open up your eyeballs a little bit more. But before we sign off here, Chris Rini, chrisrini.com, the place where we can find the book, The Fine Art of Violence, Volume 2, right?
Volume 1 and Volume 2 are available as digital downloads. I hope to have Volume 3 out. Volume 1 came out in September, then Volume 2 came out in like late May. I really would love to have this on a late March, early April annual schedule. So when I pump out Volume 3, I will also reprint Volumes 1 and 2.
Nice.
So there'll be an option for people to get their copies. Then I'm thank you for having me on. It was really nice chatting with you guys. It's been a long day. I don't know how it is by you, but it's like, over 90 degrees here all day. I rode 10 miles in the sun with 100 pounds of kids in my bike.
Wow.
I'm about to, once this call is over, I'm going to be a zombie. It's as
soon as I'm done with this, naked and laying in the air conditioner. But real quick, dropping the link for Chris's shop to pick up all of his artwork and stuff at the bottom of the YouTube channel here. And Matt, if you would do the honors and take us out.
Yep, fans can follow us, the podcast at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. You can follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk on Twitter and Instagram. Check out Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, at Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. Chris, again, thank you for joining us. I look forward to the world getting back to normal again and I said it last time, once I get to New York, we can all get a drink. And
love it, man. I hope I see you guys at an event. I hope I'm at Press Row again. Unfortunately, the site I work for is banned from UFC events, but Middle Easy sponsored me last time. And I don't know. I would love to go be cage side again drawing. That was super fun. I loved it.
We'll definitely talk off air about stuff like that later, or,
nice.
You and I are closer than Matt are, so we can get together sooner than
looking forward to that.
But and one last shout out, Jeff Russo, that I shouted out last week on the podcast. Congratulations on your black belt last night, brother. Well deserved. Long time, good time, and maybe you're not so heavy as I thought. All right, all right. Peace.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night. Thank you.